Welcome to Manufacturing Hub at Automate, powered by Siemens.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Automate 2025. I'm actually super excited to have this conversation with Bernd Raithel, so we'll welcome Bernd back on the show.
Thank you.
Before we do that and talk about the awesome things that he's doing, we'll go ahead and drop one of the former conversations we've had with Bernd. Now Bernd, I specifically did not tell you this before we went live, but as you were telling us like your previous history and experience, at some point you threw in there and yes, I was in charge of R&D for the S7 1500. And I just paused during the show and I'm like, that is an entire career here. And there you were running product marketing for Siemens USA. And now you have a super fun new role. And I'd like to go talk about it because I am visibly more excited about it than you might be at the moment. But that probably makes me very American and you very German in that instance. But Bernd, can you let everyone who might not know you know a little bit more about what you've been doing in Siemens and what your new role is, please?
All right. Hi, everybody. Yes, I got a new role now, and I'm responsible for Siemens Factory Automation here in the US for all of our R&D topics we have here in the US. So Siemens bought a company from TI in '92 in Johnson City, Tennessee, East Tennessee. Great nature. And
Yes.
A team of very talented, very great people developing automation. And since when we developed V7 200, we developed V7 1200 G1 and G2. And just of his micro PLCs, we sold globally around 25 million pieces by now. So this is in itself is a huge accomplishment thing. In addition, the colleagues are also working now on new topics like vPLC, like Sematic X. And I think we pretty much worked on every other tier portal element and a 1500 device we have or got out, launched in the last couple of years. So we really know the whole tier portfolio and we're involved in a lot of these developments. So maybe before, when I was responsible for product management of a 1500. I didn't run the R&D team, so that was another beast. And I was working very closely to make sure it's the right thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited now to take all the learnings from product management here in the US and marketing, talking to all the customers that we have here in the US, all the exciting, interesting conversations around Edge, around AI, or how we can leverage new technologies. Also take all of that back into R&D and help the R&D teams really also on that journey for the next step to develop the next products, next generations, or how we can go beyond an S7 1200, beyond an S7 1500, and basically develop the next generation of products to come.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up on that, and a fairly difficult question, Bernd.
You should be afraid, Bernd.
I hear more and more conversations, especially with the customers, looking at more software-defined automation, right, or software-defined products. So I think for you who has seen the PLC that is the workforce of automation, to be honest with you, transform into a much more, I want to say, mature product and starting to take some of the concepts from the IT side. What are some of those conversations look like, and ultimately, what are you excited about when it comes to some of those more software applications of the maybe traditional, very hardware-based control systems?
So overall, I'm super excited in the direction we're going now with the development, because I started coding when I was 14 years old. So I'm really coding for a long time, and also that's what I wanted to, when I came out of university, that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. So I was a lot in development, real-time communication systems, real-time systems. And when I worked in the first plants, it was with C, Armos, real-time systems, line control systems. Also worked with codices for a while in the 90s. So it was always more IT-like from a start. And when I had to deal with ladder logic, and it was really like, so what's that? So why do I have to do that? So what I then also realized when talking to the customers at the time, so either I program it in ladder logic or I have to come for every sensor change we need. And I didn't want to do that either. And so, we programmed stuff in ladder logic. So I'm really excited now to see that we really move forward with the IT-like engineering, that we really get more of the IT mindset into automation. And then, of course, what I also learned at the time, it's not just about the programming. You still have to take care of the electrical side, of the mechanical side. if stuff breaks down at 10 at night and you're the only guy left, then you have to find a wire break and you have to deal with all of that stuff. And then that's also, I think a lot of the colleagues in R&D know about IT. They know about the processes in IT, how to develop good products in an agile way. But when we also have to make sure that the products fits for automation, fit for manufacturing, and they really help basically a manufacturer to do it in the right way. And that's also where I believe I can bring in a lot of experience from what I did in the past and all the customer conversations I had.
Absolutely. And if I may follow up on with one more question on that side. So I think you mentioned that there's other benefits of a, let's say, virtual control system or a virtual PLC beyond just doing controls on a server or an IPC. So I'm curious, maybe as you have those conversations with the customers, what are some of those selling points? Is it the ability to maybe use their IT infrastructure to deploy faster? Is it the design of the software that becomes easier? Is it remote access, right? What kind of conversations?
No, I think there are a lot of different elements to it. So it's you have first it's software. You can start a PLC, you can stop a PLC. If you need multiple PLCs, it's easy to do. It's not a box you have to put in a cabinet anymore. You can have a PLC connected to real IOs, and you can have a PLC connected also to a simulation environment. Basically, you have two instances of the same PLC running the same code. But the next part is also really that you use still a PLC for the control part. But especially on an edge environment, you can also create your own apps. And when you have a communication between a PLC and between an edge app. So for example, if you want to write some code in Rust or in Go or in some other language, then you can do that. And when this code communicates with a PLC, so it's much more open, much more flexibility. Also integrating AI algorithms into a PLC. If you're in a virtual PLC environment, that's fairly easy. For a hardware PLC, you need another module. You're limited with the bandwidth and the compute you have on a server rack. You have no limits at the end.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question along the IT side, right? So one of the main, discussion points, arguments, yelling arguments that we've had is IT versus OT. And I know personally, I define the best groups I work with as groups that have IT involved very much towards the beginning. But I know there are still some groups that struggle with that. Are you seeing trends more going towards we agree that IT and OT need to work together for some of these solutions? Do you see those thoughts coming at some point in the near future? What are your thoughts when it comes to that, Bernd?
I've seen all of it. Let's put it like that. So I've seen we work with companies where IT and OT are very closely aligned and work together in a good way. We have companies where OT already has a lot of IT knowledge, companies where maybe the head of manufacturing, head of operations was working in OT, went maybe, for example, to Accenture, was way more on the IT side and then came back to manufacturing. And then there are companies where IT and OT isn't really working together yet. So I think also for the IT side, for both sides, it's a learning curve. So OT needs to learn more about the processes, but also IT needs to see that not everything is going to be 100% the same, like you would do it for basically IT development, new ERP system, or some other systems you have in your IT environment. So it's just not the same, because at the end of the day, also if you make a mistake or a software doesn't run, in the IT world, then maybe a couple users are unhappy. If a factory doesn't run, 15 minutes or $50,000 quite often. So the impact, if something is not working, is much higher, much bigger. So we really have to make sure when we apply the IT principles, when we go into DevOps, when we have CI/CD pipelines, all of that, we still need to make sure we validate as much as possible that everything in the production continues to run. Otherwise, nobody's going to trust that. And so we really have to make sure also to get the confidence on the OT side, on the automation side, into these new principles, that they can be really used and applied in OT as well. Yeah.
Let me ask you again another interesting question as a follow-up on this IT-OT integration, right? So I think the question of change management gets brought up quite frequently, because ultimately the OT side, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, is very familiar with ladder logic, right? They're familiar with function blocks. They're familiar maybe with some of the older ways of doing things, and that's great. But now we have all these new tools that they ultimately need to learn, need to be able to integrate. And I'm curious maybe to hear what kind of conversations you're having with customers who are going through those challenges, and maybe ultimately, how do we equip the people better to have those conversations, to have an understanding like, hey, now you have a lot more tools. This is what we can do in a more connected, I would say, enterprise.
And that's a good point, and that's also one of the first and easiest examples to go into more IT ways is really with Sematic X, for example, you have a Git integration. You can use source control. You can have multiple people working on a project. You can in different branches, and when you can bring it together, and this in itself, for a lot of colleagues also on the OT side, is very powerful when you see that maybe distributed 5 people work on a project, and when you merge the code again, and when suddenly everything comes together again, and you have all the versioning, version control, you really see who made which change, what happened. So I think that tool in itself, that we can integrate now also OT tools like Sematic X and Unify Elements into a Git environment in itself and have a version control and have a multi-user capabilities is already a great start for a lot of people, and already starts to show the benefit of going into the direction. Yeah? And I think we need some easy steps for everybody to see the value and the power, and then the rest will follow afterwards.
I am very hopeful of that. That is also what I've been saying for, 6 or 7 years. We're certainly getting past the easy steps with some groups. And I certainly do hope that we will be finding kind of the majority of the adopters very soon. And I think we had an earlier conversation with Chris and Anna Marie, and we were talking about manufacturing resilience. And I think we're going to continue to see the force and thrust of technology. And those are even some of the conversations I'm having is maybe we'll go skip a couple of historical steps and try to jump directly to an AI or try to jump directly to a digital twin. We still have to do those foundational steps to get there, but now we can use technology that is 30 years newer than when we first started going down that and go and leverage some of those ones. So I 100% would agree with that.
And I believe we have to do it. If we want to do reshoring for the US, we cannot do automation manufacturing the same way we did it when manufacturing left the US. So things have to change, have to be different. And I like the point of leapfrogging, that and instead of just doing it, trying to catch up a little bit, let's really come up with a new way, doing it differently and gain the benefits out of it so that we can really get ahead and get manufacturing back to the US. Huh?
Absolutely, I agree with that. I want to talk about the R&D position you're doing. You talked about the group up in Johnson City. We've heard lots of extremely good things about the work that they've been doing. We know some people attached to, I suppose now your group, Bernd, all extremely smart people. I would love to know how much of the R&D are you guys doing on the US side versus the German side? Are you guys running in parallel, trying to work on different ideas? How does R&D work for such a global multi-billion-dollar organization such as Siemens?
That's a very good question. And it is a global R&D organization, truly global one. So there are a lot of colleagues in Germany, there are colleagues here in the US, there are colleagues in all over Europe, Hungary, Turkey, all kinds of other places. There are a lot of people in India also working on it, and there are also colleagues in China. A lot of the colleagues in China are also working on Chinese-specific products, but also for global. So it's really a true global network of colleagues working together, and there's a constant collaboration. And for vPLC and Sematic X and these tools, it is truly global, that part of the teams are here, parts of the teams are in Germany and in other places, and then they collaborate on a constant basis, and they use all of these IT tools as well, yeah, to make sure you can work together and that you have a constant exchange, a daily exchange with everybody. Yeah.
Let me ask you, Bernd, a forward-looking question, right? Because ultimately, R&D is all about trying to foresee or forecast the future as much as possible. As much as you can, maybe, could you paint us a general picture of what manufacturing will be like in 3 to 5 years? What is your general vision? And again, I think there's a lot to be said about AI. Maybe what are some of your thoughts on how that's going to change, not only from the co-pilot standpoint, but also maybe on the control side. So I'm just curious to hear what you think manufacturing is going to look like.
Maybe the first thing, elephant in the room, we will have PLCs for the next 30 years, as it is today. Yeah? So We will have a 1500, we will have a 1200, and they will stick around. We just also recently had an upgrade of a 1500. Outside, it still looks very much the same. Inside, it's very different. Your old code still runs. You're not going to notice from the outside. If you download anything, it's all the same. But so PLCs will be around for the next 30, 40, 50 years, whatever. Because we're also like with A7 1200, if you have a simple automation task and you need one PLC, one small PLC, with 1200 is a great product just to automate it, and you don't have to deal with all kinds of other things. At the same time, I really see that we go more into the virtual PLC. We will have more virtual PLCs running on edge devices, and this really helps us to expand the automation task and integrate AI into an automation task. Also integrate other algorithms into an automation task. Yeah? And then this is really where I see future going, because this increases the possibilities of what you can do, how you optimize your machines, how you optimize your production, how you gain more efficiency, and also how you gain more flexibility in adapting and changing your production. Yeah? So this is definitely the trend, and copilots will help. Copilots will help overall. A copilot for engineering will help on all levels with Tier Portal, also with Sematic X, with all the engineering tools to be more efficient. And of course, a copilot for operations will help will help the workers to be more efficient, to make better decisions, reduce the downtime, and just have the machines running in a better way.
Absolutely, and I would say the challenge for an OEM is to have that balance, right? Because ultimately there's going to be customers who are at that cutting edge, and it depends on the vertical, it depends on the company, it depends on what they're doing as the process. And there's also going to be a lot of companies who have control systems that are 30 years old, and they're looking to just modernize and make sure that it's easy for them to migrate, and they're not interested in pushing that boundary. They just want to run their lines and make sure everything is running like clockwork. So I think it's important to recognize that challenge, in fact, also in the fact that you guys need to be creating hardware and software to some extent that will last 30 years in a factory. So I think sometimes as the end user, we don't realize what challenge that is to foresee 30 years into the future. So definitely appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. No, I would agree with that. Bernd, one of the conversations that we've been having, and it may be a Siemens German term, is you can't boil the ocean, right? You can't do everything at once. So maybe on some of these IT tools, these software tools that we were talking about, do you have a place that clients should start looking, right? It may not be the exact specific solution, but maybe a good entry point if someone is like the IT-OT convergence, the conversations Bernd is having about software-defined automation is important. Do you have a good starting point for people at home?
And let's say I believe that the IT-OT convergence in itself is a good starting point, where today you have your factory as it is. You don't want to rip everything apart, but you want to optimize it. So you want to collect more data. And to collect more data, you can use edge devices. And maybe you bring the first edge devices in your factory to collect the data, and then either you analyze it on an edge system, or you pump it up into the cloud and you run your analytics and you start to optimize your factory. But while you introduce an edge device, you also introduce possibilities for the future. Because it's a round trip, getting data from a machine, sending it up to the cloud, doing analytics and getting it back might take 30 seconds with all the stuff in between. Yeah? So that's good for analytics, but maybe later on you realize maybe I need some more operator screens. That could be also a Unify running on edge, an HMI on edge. Or you want to modernize your line control. And then, of course, you already have an edge system, so you can already run a vPLC as a line control. So step by step, you can expand an edge platform and do more. But IT-OT, really the first step, getting in first edge systems installed, collecting the data, contextualizing the data, is definitely a good way to start. And then you can expand from there and go into more and more topics and more different tasks. Yeah.
I will make the comment once again, Bernd. I think it's really good to see that there's a model where, a small to medium-sized manufacturer has a lot more access to some of these tools, right? Where in the past they needed to invest in the hardware, they needed to invest in the software, where now it scales as their operation scales as well, right? And there's a lot of, again, we can talk about the specific tools, but everything from software to simulation tools, there's all these, I guess, I want to say, opportunities to access and learn and be able to sell that maybe to upper management before you start scaling into your factory.
And then this is also important for us. So we have now for Industrial Edge, we also have an Edge developer kit where you get a virtual Edge device that you can put on any PC. You get for 12 months for free.
Nice.
Basically, you can really download the software. You get an Edge device, you put it on any PC you have. You can use our connectors, connect it to your PLC, also Ethernet IP, can collect the data. And then you can write your own Edge apps. Huh? And then, like I said, when you can show to your boss what you did, how it's working, and then you can expand from there. And then this is also something we look into the other tools really to have freemium options where people can start, they can install, maybe do a first test in a lab, think about it, get their own ideas on what we want to do, and then expand afterwards. So.
Super important. We really appreciate that.
Yes, and I will make the point, I know historically people, if Siemens, sometimes you'd have to get DVDs or other things in order to get the software. A change in probably the last 3 or 4 years that I've certainly seen is not only can you go download the software, but there are free trials. And Vlad and I have talked, and I think most of the industry is in agreement that going and having those trials so that engineers can go try this out and try to find proof of value before saying, hey, we need to go pay for the subscription is extremely important. And I personally am happy to see all of the free trials, be it on the Edge Developer Kit or on the Unified or on the WinCCOA or on a TIA portal, all of these solutions and software. So just wanted to make sure to call that out for the listeners at home. If you guys are not familiar with the new, much more modern Siemens, you can download software on the internet now, and there are free trials, which is pretty awesome, and you guys should go ahead and take advantage of that. Bernd, thank you so much for this. Through the power of editing and Vlad, I'm going to go commit Vlad to putting all of the links of all of the different Siemens products that we've put below, because I am just such a good friend and co-host when it comes to that. Bernd, thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, yes.
Thanks.
Hi everyone, we are live here at Automate 2025 together with Dave, shooting a lot of very interesting conversations and content at the Siemens booth. So if you are joining us in virtual form in all of the different social media platforms, make sure to comment, make sure to ask the questions, because ultimately we are able to connect you with the right experts. We are having a lot of different conversations on AI, on cybersecurity, on different hardware, on the G2, on TIA portal, so a lot of different various hardware and software platforms from Siemens. And if you have, like I said, any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, and we'll see you